Welcome back to Lorraine's World, a small, tiny glimpse inside my inner world. I am not here to tell you what to do, how to think, or how to be. I am simply here to reflect back to you what you already know, to say things out loud that maybe you've only whispered to yourself. And if nothing else, I hope that something I share here invites you back home to yourself, to your body, and to your own inner knowing. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about forgiveness. And not just the forgiveness that we have the ability to offer others, but the forgiveness that we rarely offer to ourselves, right? Because when we think about the word forgive, we're often thinking about letting go and healing the pain that others have caused us. But what about the parts of ourselves that showed up in those situations? What about the younger versions, the past versions of ourselves who didn't know better, didn't have the tools, didn't have the understanding or maybe even safety in how to correctly or efficiently stand up for ourselves? Because the truth is that forgiveness has less to do with the past and more about what we're choosing in the present moment. The past only exists in our minds. What actually exists is whatever is right here, right now, what's in front of you, what circumstances and situations you are currently in. But the past, we oftentimes keep the past alive by watering it with remembering it a certain way, ruminating over it a certain way, and holding on to it a certain way. Forgiveness is letting go of the idea of a better past. And I remember hearing it like this, and it completely changed how I saw what forgiveness looked like and how I thought about my past. And so it's really important for me to say and start with that forgiveness is not the act of excusing. We're not excusing the pain we were caused. We're not excusing how people have mistreated or mishandled us. And we're also not excusing the ways we showed up in those situations as well. When we're caused pain, when we go through trauma, we think that letting it go in any capacity is excusing what has happened to us. But the truth is that with our attention and our energy, we water seeds. So while we're ruminating on the past and thinking about what has happened to us, we keep that pain and that version of it alive and fresh. Forgiveness is an act of reclaiming that attention and that energy back into yourself, back into cultivating your own garden, because forgiveness says, I deserve freedom from this more than I deserve to continue to hold the anger of this. And it's not that your anger isn't valid. Your anger is valid. Your feelings are valid. What has come up in your body when you have been mistreated, mishandled, and caused pain is absolutely valid. That's not what we're talking about here. Forgiveness is how we stop letting the past grow weeds in our present. We mess up all the time in small and big ways. And the way that we usually justify these missteps is by saying, well, I didn't mean to hurt anyone and I'm a good person. But the problem with that thinking, or no, not the problem, but most people think that way. So what's the difference between you wanting your heart to be seen under your mistakes versus somebody else wanting their heart to be seen under their mistakes? There is none. There is no difference there. And again, forgiveness is not excusing the way we have been treated. When I say your feelings are valid, and it's important to remember that our feelings act as guides. They show us information and how to move through life and the situations that we're in. They offer us information into our preferences, how we want to feel, how we want to be treated, how we should move forward. It helps guide us to make more informed decisions about what's best for us and our evolution. So we do not excuse poor behavior, we do not excuse patterns, and we do not excuse the choices people make in how they treat us. Every decision that someone makes is a choice, whether it's conscious or subconscious. All choices have consequences. So when someone does cause you pain, I'm not saying forgive and forget. We never forget. Again, every moment in life, every day in life, every situation in life is offering you information for how information about yourself, information about the world around you, information about what your preferences are and how that might change throughout life, what you like, what you dislike, what you want to deal with, what you have the capacity to deal with. And with that new data, you set new boundaries. You walk away and leave people where they're at if that's what's called for. You stand up for yourself if that's what's called for. And the beauty of duality says that forgiveness can coexist at the same time. Forgiveness says, I see where you're at. I see the decisions that you've made, and I see where your capacity and your limitations are in how you handle and treat me. I do not excuse this behavior because this behavior has led me to feel X, Y, and Z, and I do not choose to feel X, Y, and Z willingly, right? Sometimes we can't avoid feeling certain ways. But if this is the experience that you're offering me and I don't like this experience, forgiveness says, I don't approve of this. I accept it. I accept what is being offered. I'm leaving this here. And to ensure my well-being and my peace, these are the action steps that I'm taking moving forward. But I forgive you because I accept that this is where you're at and this is the best you could offer me. Even the most malicious acts come from deeply rooted wounds and unmet needs. And forgiveness isn't about approving what happened. Forgiveness doesn't say, it's okay what you did to me. Forgiveness is building acceptance to what is, what has unfolded. It's letting go of the idea of a better past, of a better outcome, because something has already transpired. This is what it is. This is what has happened. Forgiveness is the slow and steady reconstruction of peace within our minds and our hearts, not because someone else deserves it, but because you do. Holding on to the pain and anger, grudges, resentment that someone else has caused only causes you pain, only keeps the pain fresh and alive in your mind, your body, and your present reality. It's not an excuse, right? Forgiveness is not an excuse or a tool to use to re-enter unhealthy dynamics, unsafe situations, and relationships that have shown you that pain is going to keep coming here. This is where pain is going to live. This is where pain is going to keep being reborn. So if someone has hurt you, it is important to stick to consequences and boundaries and new ways of being, right? Moving forward in a different way that protects your peace and your well-being. But forgiveness is simply letting go of the pain, accepting what is, and moving on for your peace of mind. One of my favorite affirmations in life is what's best for you is what's best for me, and what's best for me is what's best for you. Best doesn't always mean preferable. Best doesn't always mean good. Sometimes and oftentimes unpreferable moments show us information that we really needed, right? Sometimes the worst situations in our life or the bad things we experience act as catalysts to bring us to a different place in life, to show us information about ourselves and about the world around us. Sometimes we needed things to get really bad in order for us to see what we don't want to deal with anymore. Sometimes we needed unpreferable moments and situations to realize where we were ignoring intuitive nudges, to know what it felt like for an intuitive nudge to be present in our body. Like, for example, oftentimes we look back and we're like, oh, I knew it. I knew it in that moment. I had a weird feeling, but like we didn't know how to listen to that feeling. We didn't know how to listen to that intuitive nudge. We didn't know how to listen to that information that was being offered. So sometimes the bad things we experience in life, in hindsight, right? Hindsight's 2020, teach us a lot about ourselves and a lot about how we are in relation to others. So we can't project onto a situation that, oh, this person should have treated me better, because what if it was in that mistreatment that a purpose was born, an idea was born, a better way of being was born, right? A resilience was born within you that wouldn't have been born otherwise. And I feel like it's really important to restate that I'm not excusing the traumas or pain anyone has been through. What you have been through, and if no one else has said it, I will, like, it wasn't okay. And I'm so sorry for the pain and the traumas that you've endured, because no one deserves that. Your pain is valid. What you feel from that pain is valid. And what you've been through, how you feel, and how that affected who you are today is not what's in question here. I'm simply talking about how we choose to continue to carry that pain into our present day reality, into our new circumstances, situations, and relationships, how we have a hard time accepting what has happened, and we hold on to that pain as a way of holding the people who have caused us that pain accountable. But it does nothing for them and does so much damage to you. And you are right. You are right. What they did wasn't okay. How they did it wasn't okay. And the way that you asked for them to stop, it wasn't okay. And you're also right in your what ifs. Like, if it was like this, it would have been different. If they had just done this, it would have been different. If I had known this, it would have been different. You're right. But that's not the reality of what has actually unfolded. Forgiveness is letting go of the idea of a better past. So how do we move forward? How do we move on? We take the information that we learned from those situations, we apply it to our lives now, and we move accordingly. Whether that's with new boundaries, inner boundaries and outer boundaries, right? Because again, it's back to forgiving ourselves. How did we show up in those situations? What part of us showed up in those situations and allowed it to happen? Which is why forgiveness has to start with ourselves first. If we don't practice offering ourselves compassion and grace in situations, we can't give it to others sustainably or effectively. If when you make a mistake, your inner voice is filled with shame and punishment and a bunch of you should have known better, you project that same energy onto other people, expecting perfection from them and from yourself when that just doesn't exist. It's in changing that inner voice to saying, I see where I misstepped, I take accountability in how I showed up, and even in that, I am still worthy of forgiveness, grace, and compassion. Accountability does not equal responsibility. Responsibility says, this happened because of me. This is my fault. I caused this situation. But accountability says, I see where I ignored the red flags. I see where I abandoned my own inner boundaries to maintain peace. Accountability says, I shaped part of this dynamic from showing up from my inner wounds too. It takes two to tango, right? So it's not always, it's their fault, it's my fault. Sometimes it's like, I see how they showed up and why they showed up this way, and I see how I showed up and why I showed up this way. And in the mix of all of that, there can still live grace, compassion, forgiveness, and holding people accountable. Because again, every decision made, whether it's conscious, subconscious, purposeful, non-purposeful, I didn't mean to do that, I didn't mean to hurt you, still holds consequences. Accountability is about self-honesty, not self-blame. It invites reflection and learning, not punishment and guilt. Unless you are being manipulative or intentionally directly harming someone, you are not responsible for their choices or their behavior. You are only accountable for how you showed up in that dynamic, for what you allowed and why you might have allowed it. So instead of that harmful self-talk about how it's your fault, self-forgiveness says, I see how I showed up, I'm understanding where it came from, and I'm choosing to offer myself grace instead of shame. And this unfortunately doesn't eliminate the pain. Pain is present when we build self-awareness to our own limitations and our capacity. Growth in any capacity often hurts because a newfound awareness asks us to look at these parts of ourselves that we've often ignored, shamed, outgrown, or even misunderstood. So it's okay for there to be pain, grief, anger, sadness, disappointment when you're offering forgiveness to yourself and to others, because emotions don't move at the speed of logic. So in the moments of accepting what has happened and how someone has shown up, you're building that understanding of an acceptance of they did their best, I did my best, but this is what has ultimately unfolded. The emotion will and oftentimes may still need time to process and fully feel. It's making room for those feelings while you're simultaneously letting love and understanding lead the way. It's choosing, like forgiveness helps you choose your own inner peace instead of holding grudges and resentment. Healing isn't about becoming or loving the best version of ourselves. Healing is about loving the worst, messy versions of ourselves. The parts we've hidden, we've judged, and we've rejected. The parts of ourselves we wish we could rewrite, but we simply can't. And that is why forgiveness is so important. It's okay that we were messy. It's okay that we misstepped. It's okay that we didn't act in ways that we were super proud of. But what matters now is how you move forward with that new information. No matter how healed you become, or no matter how much you practice better, you will inevitably misstep because you're human. And when you do misstep, that negative self-talk or the ways you punish yourself in your mind is not self-love. Because even in those moments that you don't think you did the best you could, you did with your current capacity, the limitations, where you are at emotionally, physically, mentally in those moments. Our best varies throughout our days. So forgiveness acts as a bridge where we can cross from self-blame to self-compassion. A bridge where we can cross from holding pain to releasing it. From staying stuck to moving forward. To forgive ourselves and forgive others is to say, even in this, I choose love. Even with this, I choose healing. Forgiveness is internal, boundaries are external. You can forgive someone for how they've chosen to show up in your life and choose not to let them continue showing up in your life in that way, in whatever capacity that looks like. Forgiveness says, I no longer carry resentment and pain for how this unfolded. I release it so I could be free. And boundaries say, and I will no longer continue participating in this dynamic in this way. And when you've spent a long time confusing peace with people pleasing, clarity can feel cold, but really it's warmth pointed inward. It's you honoring how situations and people have made you feel, taking that information from those situations and moving forward accordingly. Forgiveness is not a one-time decision. We don't just wake up one day and decide to forgive and then it's done. It's a practice. It's a conscious choice to unclench your heart again and again when it would be easier to harden. And just like a baby learning to walk for the first time, right? If we're talking about forgiveness being a practice, when you see a baby learning to walk for the first time and that baby falls, you don't say, get up, dummy. That's not the way you're supposed to do it. No. You would encourage that baby to try again and it just made a small mistake, a small misstep. So talk to yourself like that baby trying to walk for the first time, when you're trying to forgive, when you're trying to practice a new way of being, when you're trying to set a new boundary from situations that were unpreferable. You're learning a new way of being. It's okay if you misstep. It's okay if you make a mistake. Just get back up and try again. So whether you're learning to forgive someone else or forgive a past version of yourself, take your time and stay gentle. And remember that grace is not something that you have to earn. It's something you're allowed to give to yourself and to others, but especially and foremost to yourself. And as a reminder, you don't need me or anyone else to tell you what to do or how to think. You just need the space to remember that you already know. And the truth is, your knowing has never left you. It's just been waiting for you to listen.